This is a Conservative Czar, November 30th, 2015. It's my third video for the day. And I want to talk now about a couple things I've talked about today. And I want to talk about the nature of the problem that we're dealing with in the Middle East vis-a-vis radical extremist terrorist Muslims. And a lot has been said that the one of the great arguments is that by the left and many people, but mostly on the left, who say that this is a small minority of extreme Muslims, terrorists. It's a real small minority, and they never quantify it. But I'm going to try to quantify it to talk about the differences here. I got to believe they're talking about 1, 2, 3%. That's what they think. And on the other hand, is the other way is to say that all Muslims are terrorists. And there are people talking like that. It's wrong. You got to accept the fact that we know there are silent, moderate Muslims. They're silent about it, and that's disturbing. But what really is the nature of and I want to distinguish something. It's got to be distinguished. And that is the distinction between Arab Muslims and most of the other ethnic Muslims. And I want to concentrate on the Arab Muslims right now. Every other one we can talk about differently, but I want to concentrate on the Arab Muslim population. And I think the same theme runs to the Arab. The liberals and the left think that 1 to 2 or 3% are radical. There's some who say that all Arab Muslims are radical. And but we have some evidence that the nature of the Muslim community in the Middle East and the Arab Muslim community is a little bit more susceptible to radical Islam than the left likes to portray, not to the far end. And we have evidence, and some of the evidence is that is in Egypt when the overthrow of Mubarak, the Clinton-Obama Arab Spring occurred, and everything was in disarray. We betrayed Mubarak, and we actually had elections in Egypt. These were real elections. There doesn't seem to be much corruption, and we had an election that elected radical Muslim jihadists. They elected them. They voted for them. So this idea that it's a real small minority just isn't true. Now, what happened in Egypt is, and we have great evidence for this, is that they put them in power, and then the Muslim Brotherhood overstepped their bounds. And the people rebelled. The people who voted for them, maybe half of them, rebelled against the idea and realized they had made a mistake, called for the military to come back in, and the military stepped in. Thank God. El-Sisi is saved the world a lot, and we owe a lot to him, just like we owe to Mubarak. I hope El-Sisi knows. Don't trust the United States. You'll end up in jail dying like Mubarak did. But El-Sisi is straighten that place up. But the point I want to get at is that this was not a small sect in the Egyptian Muslim community. At one point, it was a majority. So this idea that it's 1 or 2% is wrong. There's a fluidity, but there is a natural instinct on the part of Arab Muslims to have a knee-jerk reaction to support terror against the West. And I don't think it's 1 to 2. I don't think it's 100, but it's much bigger than most people think. Now, active terrorists, 5, 10%. People who will support them, I think it approaches 50%. 50% of the Arab Muslim people in the street will support terror and the extremists. That's a huge number, and it changes the dynamic of how we look at this. If we understand, now we understand that once we accept the idea that the American Muslim movement I mean, the Arab Muslim movement is it has a great many, a large part of their population that will support terror. I'm not saying they do all the time, but they will. They voted for the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt when free elections. Got to keep this in mind when we're talking about what we're going to do to the region. It's a very dicey situation, and all I'm trying to make of this is that there seems to be reasonable evidence that there's more extremism within the Arab Muslim community than not. And we go over to Iran, which is not Arab, Persian. The Iran situation with the overthrow of the Shah, this was a popular uprising supporting a radical Islamic. It was a movement that rallied around radical Muslim clerics to take over the country. It was a popular movement. Again, a majority of the people, one can argue this, but I just don't believe there's any reasonableness in saying that this was a minority of people who took over Iran. It was not. It was popular. They supported the radical jihadist Islamic clerics in taking over the country. Now, that's not Arab, it's Persian. I said they're different. But the point I'm trying to get at is that this idea that it's a small minority is just not right. And when we're talking about the region, we have to be always aware that the nature of what we are getting involved in. And it's why the law of unintended consequences are always will occur in this region. And unless we put strong men in place, the lid will be off here. And I said before, it could be a lot worse than we have today. This is the Conservative Czar. See you next time.